fifth grade, welcome back to history. This video is for April 29th. Today we're going to continue in chapter 13, but before we do, I want to share some verses with you from one of the Psalms. This is Psalm 67. May God be gracious to us and bless us, and make his face to shine upon us, that your way may be known on the earth, your saving power among all nations. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you judge the peoples with equity and guide the nations upon the earth. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. The earth has yielded its increase. God, our God, shall bless us. God shall bless us. Let all the ends of the earth fear him. I read a devotion this morning about these verses, and it said that there was a woman who set her alarm on her clock every day to go off at 3:16. And I thought, well, that's a really strange time. But then the more I thought about it, I wondered if maybe that had to do with John 3:16. But every day at that time, she would stop and she would just spend time with the Lord, thanking him for all of the blessings that he had given her and just growing closer to him through prayer. And I just thought that was such a wonderful idea to have a specific time each day, maybe besides, your regular time, maybe in the morning or at night, just to stop during your day and to think about God and to praise him. And as we do that, and as we thank him for all of his blessings and his goodness to us, it will help others see that in us, that thankful spirit, and hopefully it will help them draw closer to the Lord as well. So we have so much to be thankful for, even in a time like this when things are different, maybe not exactly the way we would have liked them to be, but God has been so good to us and provided homes for us to live in and food for us to eat and families to take care of us and to spend special time with that we wouldn't ordinarily have. And so we do have so much to be thankful for and to praise him for. I hope that encourages you today. So today, as I said, we're going to continue in chapter 13. Yesterday, we looked at the unusual battle between the two ironclads, the Merrimack and the Monitor. Do you remember the clue that I gave you to keeping them straight? Remember, Merrimack has a C and it goes with Confederate C. Monitor, O-N, goes with Union, O-N. That's the clue that I used to keep those straight. So today we're going to look at another important development during the Civil War, and that was the Emancipation Proclamation. So follow along with me. We're on page 211 in your history book. The question of what he should do with the slaves bothered President Lincoln. If he set them free, what would happen to them after the war was over? They had no homes to live in, nor jobs to make a living from. Very few had any education. How could they get jobs in order to buy homes, food, and clothing? How would a nation already weak from war help them? So it was a difficult situation. Of course, life on the plantation was terrible for the slaves. They didn't have freedom, but if they were freed, then how were they going to support themselves and their families? Because they hadn't been given an opportunity to get an education. They had only been able to do the work that they had been given on the plantation. So it was a really difficult situation. Of course, it would be better for them to be free, to not have to be slaves on the plantations. But what were they going to do once they were free? How were they going to live? How were they going to survive? As the war dragged on, President Lincoln felt that he could weaken the South and shorten the war by setting the slaves free. He made an announcement that on January 1st, 1863, all slaves would be considered free in any states that were fighting against the North. So President Lincoln did make the decision that he was going to free the slaves in hopes that this would bring the war to a quicker end. And so this Emancipation Proclamation declared that any slaves in states that were fighting against the Union would be free on January 1st, 1863. Let's keep going. This announcement is known as the Emancipation Proclamation. To emancipate means to free. A proclamation is an important statement. So let's say you had a bird and you had it in a cage and you opened the door and you let the bird out, you let it go free, you emancipated it, you set it free. So the Emancipation Proclamation was a decree, a statement that said the slaves would be free as of January 1st, 1863. Let's keep going. Top of page 212. The Emancipation Proclamation did not do several things. It could not really free the slaves until the North won the war. So it wasn't really enforceable until after the North had won. In order for this to truly happen, the North had to defeat those southern states. Also, it did not free any slaves who were owned in states that were not fighting against the Union. So in those states that were not fighting against the Union, that had not left the Union, but were still states where slavery was allowed, those slaves were not freed. It was only the slaves that were in the states that were fighting against the Union that were freed. After the war, an amendment or change would be added to our Constitution, giving all slaves in the United States and her territories their freedom. So that happened when the 13th Amendment was added to the Constitution. An amendment, remember, is a change or an addition to the Constitution. And so the 13th Amendment states that there is no slavery allowed in the United States. And that came later. However, the Emancipation Proclamation did have one immediate result. For many people, it changed the reason for fighting the Civil War. Before the proclamation was read, the Union Army was fighting to keep our country from dividing. Now the Union Army was also fighting to free the slaves. So an important issue up to this point had been to keep our country together, to keep the Union from being divided, to preserve the United States. But this added another really important factor, and it really made everyone want to continue to fight even harder to free the slaves so that they would not have to live the way they had been living for all those years. Before the Emancipation Proclamation, England had considered helping the South become a separate country. However, England was against slavery and had no wish to help the South continue slavery. So the Emancipation Proclamation ended the South's chance of receiving English help. That was another important result of the Emancipation Proclamation. So the country of England had thought about helping the South with its war effort, giving supplies and things so the South could fight against the North and maybe defeat the North. But when President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, the country of England said, oh no, we're not going to help the South. We're not going to help those Confederate states because we don't allow slavery in England. We're against it. And if we help the Confederate states, then they're going to continue to have slavery. And we don't want that to happen. So that was an important result. No longer could the Southern states depend on or count on or hope for any help from the country of England. So I have something that I wanted to show you, and I'm really not sure how well this is going to show up on the video, but I hope you can see it. This is a copy of part of the Emancipation Proclamation. So this is the front page of the Emancipation Proclamation, and this is the back page. And here's Abraham Lincoln's signature right here. All right, so just a short lesson today about the importance of the Emancipation Proclamation. We'll continue on with chapter 13 tomorrow, but I do want to mention a quick shout out to Gracie Deering. Thank you so much for sending me the picture of your log cabin that you made last week. You did an amazing job on it. If anybody else still wants to send in a picture, that's fine. All right, have a great day. Thanks for watching this video.